You ever have one of those neighbors who acts like your property belongs to them, as if the fence line's done to matter and your hard work is just free for the taking? Picture this. A calm Saturday afternoon, coffee in hand, birds chirping, sun shining, and suddenly, without a knock or a hello, your neighbor storms into your yard, stomping on the flowers you planted yourself. When you finally gather the courage to say, "Enough is enough," she doesn't apologize or back down. She whips out her phone, dials 911, and accuses you of harassing her. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And what followed was a roller coaster of disbelief, anger, and ultimately, the sweetest justice I've ever tasted. I've lived in my little house for almost 7 years. It's not a mansion, it's not a sprawling estate, but it's mine. I worked 2 jobs for years to save for the down payment. When I finally signed those papers, I swore I'd care for this place like it was part of my soul. The grass, mowed every Saturday morning, neat green corduroy lines. The flower beds, tulips and daffodils my mom helped me plant my first spring here. The vegetable garden tucked in the back, my sanctuary. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, I'd grown them from seeds. Every weed I pulled and fence post I hammered was a reminder of what I'd built. Then came Karen. Not her real name, but it fits. She moved in next door a year after I did. At first, she seemed bold but harmless. She'd wave when I was mowing and say things like, "Your yard looks great. It's so nice to have neighbors who care." Harmless enough. Then the little things started. The first time, she cut straight across my lawn instead of using the sidewalk. She dragged her rolling suitcase across the grass, leaving deep grooves. I half expected an apology. She just smiled, waved, and went on. I told myself not to overreact. It's just grass. Grass grows back. But then it escalated. Her dog, a yappy little thing with no leash manners, started running through my flower beds. One morning I looked outside to see bright yellow daffodils bent, petals torn, dirt scattered. Karen stood on the sidewalk scrolling on her phone while her dog dug a hole right in the middle of my tulips. My chest tightened, anger bubbling up. "Hey, could you not let your dog in my flowers?" I called. She didn't look up. She mumbled, "Relax. They're just flowers." Just flowers. To me, they weren't just flowers. They were something I planted with my mom, a memory of afternoons spent with our hands in the soil, coaxing these bursts of color to life. To hear her dismiss them felt like a slap in the face. The worst was the garden. I came home one afternoon with grocery bags, rounded the corner to the backyard, and froze. There she was, standing in my vegetable patch, picking my tomatoes like she was at a farmer's market. She had one in her mouth, juice dripping down her chin. I dropped the bags, marched over, and said, "What do you think you're doing?" She blinked, unfazed. "Oh, you've got so many. You won't miss a few." Heat rushed to my face. "These are mine. You can't just walk into someone's yard and take their food." She laughed, a sharp, mocking laugh, and said, "Relax. Sharing is what neighbors do." Then she popped another tomato in her mouth and walked off, leaving muddy footprints on the stepping stones I'd laid out. That night, I tossed and turned. Part of me wanted to scream at her the next time I saw her. Another part thought, maybe if I ignore it, she'll stop. But ignoring wasn't working. Every time I looked out my window, it was something new. Her trash cans on my side of the property line, her kids cutting through the yard to chase a ball, her parking half her car on my grass. It was like she thought the invisible line separating our properties didn't exist, or worse, that she was entitled to both. The breaking point came on a warm evening in June. I'd just finished watering the garden and sat down on my porch with a glass of iced tea. The air smelled of fresh grass and honeysuckle, the kind of summer evening that makes you feel at peace. That's when I heard the gate creak. I looked up and saw Karen striding right into my yard like she owned it. No knock. No hello. Just bold intrusion. She marched straight toward the garden. Something inside me snapped. My heart pounded, adrenaline surged, but my voice came out steady. "Stop! You're not welcome here. Get out of my yard!" She froze, mouth opening in exaggerated shock. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me? Don't talk to me like that. I said get out, I repeated, standing so quickly my chair clattered behind me. This is my property. You don't get to just waltz in here whenever you feel like it. Her lips curled into a smug smile. Oh, you think you're tough? Fine. Let's see what the cops say about your little temper tantrum. She whipped out her phone and dialed 911. I stood there, stunned. My neighbor was trespassing, stealing from my garden, and somehow she thought I was the problem. She put on the most dramatic show for the dispatcher, her voice trembling as she said, "Yes, I'm being harassed by my neighbor. He's screaming at me. I feel unsafe." She glanced at me while she spoke, her eyes glittering with triumph. Minutes later, 2 police cruisers pulled up. Karen ran to meet them, pointing back at me with crocodile tears running down her cheeks. "He threatened me. He said he was going to hurt me," she cried. My stomach twisted. What if they believed her? One of the officers turned to me and asked calmly, "Sir, what happened here?" My hands shook, but I kept my voice steady. I pointed out the property line, told them about the repeated trespassing, the garden, the flowers, the dog. I even pulled out my phone and scrolled to the footage from my security camera, installed just weeks earlier after one too many intrusions. On screen, clear as day, was Karen pushing open my gate and stomping across my yard. The officers' expressions shifted. One raised an eyebrow, another sighed. "Ma'am," one said, turning to her, "this is private property. He's within his rights to ask you to leave. You can't just walk in here." Her face flushed red. She sputtered, But he yelled at me. He scared me." The officer shook his head. "That's not harassment. That's someone defending their property. If you come onto his property again without permission, you could be charged with trespassing." I'll never forget the look on her face. The smugness drained away, replaced with rage. She opened her mouth to argue, but the officer cut her off. "This is your warning. Don't let it happen again." When they left, she shot me a glare so sharp I thought it might cut glass. But for the first time in months, I felt relief. Finally, someone had seen through her act. Finally, the truth was on my side. But the story didn't end there. Karen wasn't done. Over the next week, she tried to push back in petty ways, blasting music at odd hours, letting her sprinkler spray over the fence into my yard, starting a rumor that I was unstable and dangerous. But the thing about people like Karen is they eventually trip over their own arrogance. It happened when another neighbor, Mr. Henderson, a retired teacher with little patience for nonsense, caught her leaving her trash bags in his recycling bin. He'd had enough. He reported her to the HOA, not just for that, but for a laundry list of complaints. The dog off leash, the noise, the trespassing. I didn't have to lift a finger. The HOA slapped her with fines so steep she had to sell her outdoor furniture just to keep up. I watched from my porch as she hauled out those fancy lawn chairs and the decorative fountain she was so proud of, all listed for sale online. Suddenly, the woman who acted like she owned everyone else's property couldn't even afford to maintain her own. Her yard grew wild with weeds, her once pristine driveway cracked and stained. The other neighbors stopped inviting her to block parties, stopped waving when she walked by. She became a pariah, not because of anything I did, but because of how she treated everyone. And me? I finally got my peace back. No more stomping across the lawn. No more stolen tomatoes. No more fake 911 calls. My yard was mine again. Looking back, I realized it wasn't just about the garden or the flowers or even the grass. It was about respect. The simple fact that everyone deserves to feel safe and secure in their own home. Karen thought she could bulldoze through boundaries, that her entitlement gave her power. But when I stood up, when I finally said no, that power crumbled. That's the thing about people like her. They thrive on fear, on the assumption you'll stay quiet and let them walk all over you. But the moment you draw the line and back it up with facts, with evidence, with calm determination, they can't hold on to that power anymore. So if you've ever had a neighbor or a coworker or a so-called friend who tried to take advantage of you, remember this. You don't have to scream. You don't have to stoop to their level. You just have to stand firm. Because the truth has a way of shining through. And karma? Karma never forgets. And if hearing about Karen S.'s downfall gave you even half the satisfaction it gave me living it, then you know exactly why I had to share this story. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's just standing tall, holding your ground, and watching as the person who tried to tear you down unravels all on their own.